Welcome to the No Doubt Podcast. I'm your host, Howard Kam, and today, let's talk about neighborhoods and one of my students' baseball coaches. And trust me, it's relevant. Hey, let's play a game real quick. I want you to close your eyes and think about the best community in your neighborhood. Imagine a place, if money were no object, you'd love to live. What does that neighborhood look like? Is it a cozy suburb or a bustling city? Maybe a beach town or a peaceful tree-lined street? Do you picture tall trees swaying in the wind? Maybe there are kids playing on the playgrounds or riding their bikes safely through the streets. What do the houses look like? Are they modern? Are they quaint? Are the cars sleek and new? Are they classics? And the lawns, are they perfectly manicured? How's the hedges? When we think about nice neighborhoods, we all seem to have a similar image in our heads. You just know when you're in one. The streets are clean, the homes are well kept, and there's a sense of pride in the air. People care about their surroundings. You feel safe, and you wouldn't think twice about walking at night. Now, let's flip that. I want you to think about the worst community in your area. Picture a place where you feel uneasy just driving around, let alone walking around at night. The streets are run down, the houses need repair, and the air feels heavy with neglect. Would you stroll after dark there? Probably not. Why are these two communities so different? What makes one feel safe and prosperous while the other feels abandoned? Most of you are probably thinking, money. And you're right. In wealthier communities, people have more resources. They've often had access to better education, better jobs, and more stability. These people care about their environment because they can afford to. But it's not just about money, right? It's about the behaviors and the attitudes that come with it. People in these neighborhoods take care of their homes, their lawns, and their cars. They have time and energy to invest in these things because they aren't constantly scrambling for basic necessities. Kids in these neighborhoods tend to stay out of trouble. Their parents are more likely to be together, providing a stable home environment. And there's a clear sense of what is expected and what it means to belong in a nice neighborhood. Now let's go back to that rundown community. Why is it that people in those areas often don't take care of things? Sure, it's easy to say they don't have money, but there's more to it. Why is there graffiti? Why are there broken windows and neglected parks? Why are kids getting into trouble? It's not just about money. It's about purpose or the lack of it. When young people, especially boys, grow up without clear goals, opportunities, or role models, they often band together in gangs or fall into destructive behavior. And this phenomenon has a name. It's called the youth bulge. And I know it's a silly sounding name, but that's the name of the phenomenon. The youth bulge phenomenon refers to a disproportionately large segment of the population being composed of young people, particularly those between the ages of 15 and 29. And while this can be a demographic asset, particularly in developing countries with growing economies, it can also lead to severe social and economic pressures if not managed properly. In the case of America, especially in the context of certain neighborhoods, the youth bulge has played a significant role in the creation of some of the most challenged and terrible neighborhoods. The youth bulge, when paired with economic, social, and political mismanagement, has played a critical role in creating and perpetuating quote-unquote terrible neighborhoods in America. High concentrations of young people in areas already struggling with poverty, unemployment, and underfunded social services intensified social problems like crime, drug use, and gang violence. Systemic issues like redlining, housing segregation, and mass incarcerations further compounded these challenges. What could have been a demographic asset, a large, energetic, and youthful population, became in many neighborhoods a source of social tension and unrest due to the lack of opportunities and resources. The youth bulge, without proper economic and social infrastructure, contributed significantly to the decline of many urban neighborhoods, leaving behind legacies of violence, poverty, and generational stagnation. It's not just because they're inherently bad, but because they're looking for something, or anything, to give them a sense of belonging and purpose. I see this in some students that I teach. They form these little cliques, they act tough, they stir up trouble, but deep down, I think they're just lost. They don't have dreams, and they don't see the point of education. And this is something that every teacher, every parent who cares, has been talking about forever. Education is the way out of poverty. It's the key to more resources and a better way of life. But then there's this pressure to go to some fancy college, which isn't always the answer. Trade schools, community colleges, these are viable paths too. I went to a community college for 2 years. I got my general education done at those community colleges. I saved a ton of money. And by the time I transferred to a university as a junior, I only had to pay for 2 years. So yeah, there are smarter ways to go about it. But back to the core issue, resources. You see, money buys access to better schools and safer neighborhoods and healthier food and medical care. And people say, money doesn't buy happiness. And I'm so tired of hearing that. Really? Tell that to someone who's homeless. Tell them that having a safe place to sleep and food to eat wouldn't make them happier. If someone has cancer, money buys access to the best treatment. It might not cure them, but it gives them a fighting chance. Money is about access. It's about resources. Now think about how people spend their money. I've got this student who asked me the other day what a good credit score is. And I told him 750 or better. And then I began a story about how people waste money on stupid things. And when they get a little bit of money, they just spend it and then blow it on things they don't need, like a big lifted truck with fancy rims and illegal tint and a sound system. They can't afford their bills, but they've got that truck, right? It's ridiculous. Which brings me to my student's baseball coach. It's because my student starts to laugh. And when I asked him why he's laughing, he said that I'm describing one of his baseball coaches. This guy drives a lifted truck, vapes in the parking lot, and get this, he still talks about how cool he was in high school. He's in his mid-20s and can't let go of his glory days. He's drowning in debt, but spends money on stupid stuff like that truck. And I told my students, I bet you anything his registration is expired because he can't afford it. So I told him, go look at his registration. And if it's expired, he's not paying his bills. He's in debt. He can't even afford the truck that he's paying to drive. Because this coach is a perfect example of what happens when you don't manage your money. He's living in a fantasy world where his truck makes him cool, but in reality, he's broke and he's stuck and he's fucking out of luck. And I bet he lives in a less than nice neighborhood. When he finally was out of his parents' house, I bet he's going to be deep in debt with nothing to show for it. And if you're still talking about how cool you were in high school, you know what? It's time to move on. Your best days are ahead of you if you make smarter choices. All right, I'm going to leave it with that. I'll see you next time on the Annoyed Adult Podcast.